Hi class. So in this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about writing assignment number 2, which is to develop your research paper and to write a research paper from scratch. So the first steps that I'm going to talk about are the first 5 listed here. How to go about picking a topic, how to formulate research questions, how to do a little bit of pre-writing or mind mapping, doing some preliminary research, and how to organize your research to start that stage as well. And then I'll do another video talking more specifically about thesis statements, drafting, and the final stages of revising and proofreading. But let's get started on our first topic, which is just to pick the topic of your research paper and how to go about that. So really, when you're looking for a topic, it's basically it could be anything that is interesting to you and that has a debatable argument that could be associated with it. In this case, my example is whether spanking should be allowed or whether it's a useful tool in terms of parenting. So from that broad topic of spanking children, you could develop or spin off a couple of different research questions. So that's sort of the first stage that I want you to go through is what are your initial questions about this larger topic? And can you narrow it down to specific research question or questions that you want to be able to look more deeply into and find the answers to using research? So should parents be allowed to spank their children? Is spanking a helpful way to teach a child to behave appropriately? Are there alternatives to spanking that are equally effective? Just a couple questions that popped into my head around this issue. So yeah, if you wanted to create a list of 5 questions or 3 questions that relate to your broad topic, that's a good way to start. You can mention here that you can use the same topic that you did for your journal article assignment. So if you were interested in developing that topic into a full essay research paper, you can definitely do that. If you want to pick a whole new topic, you can do that as well. So it's just up to you to pick something that you're interested in and that you have maybe questions that you want to delve deeper into. So just some tips for picking your topic. Pick something you're genuinely interested in. You'll get bored halfway through if it's not something that you're actually interested in, or you're just picking it because, it's an easy topic. So actually, it's best if you pick something that you're actually interested in, because you're going to have to read quite, a lot of material to put together in your paper. So just, you're going to spend some time on this. So you want to make sure that it's something that you're actually genuinely passionate about or interested in and want to learn more about. So having that curiosity is an important ingredient, I guess, in your research question, research paper. It should be a topic that is debatable or an argument. So the best topics have some sort of tension involved with them. If it's just, a very ordinary question, or there's no debate or topic, who was the Prime Minister of Canada during Confederation or whatever, that's not really a debatable topic. It's a historical fact. So you want to make sure that your topic has some sort of tension or debate, that there's different sides or angles that you can look at. So I want you to kind of investigate the sides of an issue, like what is the controversy or the argument, the tension around this issue. That said, it doesn't have to be like it doesn't have to be a hugely divisive issue, but it does have to have a little bit of tension. So there has to be different angles or perspectives involved in it to make it a strong research paper. If you're not sure, do some scans of newspapers. It's good to find things that are relevant and timely. Obviously there's a lot going on in the world today. So you're not at loss for topics that are divisive and debatable right now in society. So yeah, if you're not sure what you want to write about, it's a good idea to sort of just, yeah, scan newspapers, look at documentary subjects. If you're a film person, look at Netflix documentaries, see what they're writing about or what their films are about. See, those kind of topics are always interesting. And you want to make sure that your topic is narrow enough that it would be able to cover it within the length of paper that we have designated for us. So our paper is supposed to be, I think it is, just I want to double check here. Yeah, so 1,000 to 1,250 words. So that's 4 to 5 pages, double spaced. So you don't want to take on too much. You can't write, a 20-page paper and fit it all into a 4-page paper, right? So you want to take a topic that is narrow enough that you can tackle the topic relatively easily in 4 to 5 pages. And you want to make sure it's a topic that you can actually find some research on. So it's always a good idea to have maybe a couple different topics in mind, just in case one doesn't really, produce any results when you start searching for it. So yeah, it just depends on maybe the topic is too niche or too specific, or just hasn't been written about a lot. So you maybe want to give yourself a little bit of variety, plan A, plan B, plan C, just in case your first topic doesn't really produce any results when you start doing your research searches. So make it narrow enough that you can write about it, but again, have plan A, plan B, just in case your topic doesn't turn out when you start doing your initial research. So in the initial stages of your writing, you want to just get to know the topic a little bit better. So I usually call this phase sort of the initial reading and pre-writing stage of your research paper. So there's lots of sort of exercises that you can do. One of them is free writing. So that's just sort of you loosely drafting or just letting your ideas, putting your ideas down on paper, or opening a Word document and just starting to write, and not really worrying about structure or sentences or grammar or anything like that. It's a good exercise to do. So give yourself, 10 minutes or 5 minutes even, and just start typing away at what you already know about this topic, or what your initial feelings or interests are in this topic. So that's a good exercise. Other things you could start thinking about listing. This is something I do a lot when I'm, in the pre-writing stages. I'll make a list of sort of pros and cons about the issue, or try to look at, causes and effects or problems and solutions about that issue, and try to make lists and sort of figure out what main ideas are sort of building off of my topic. You could go for a more rigid outline, and I do think it's a good idea to have that outline prepared in advance of writing your essay, so you kind of know the structure of your paper. And I'll put a link on the course homepage to an outline that you can use for this essay that follows sort of what I'm asking for you to do. Brainstorming is again, maybe people who are more sort of tactile or visual learners or thinkers can do a sort of mind map. And I'll walk you through that exercise. But sometimes it's good to get, a blank piece of paper out, a marker, highlighting pens, pen and paper, and just sort of draw, a web of associating, ideas around this larger issue. So what pops into your mind related to those issues? Are there different sort of sections or main ideas that pop out from that one initial broad topic? So that's an exercise we can talk more about. Other things that you can do just to stimulate your discussion or your interest in the topic is to talk with friends and family, see what their views are, see if they're different from your own. Try to get a sense of what the sort of broader scope of perspectives are around this issue. And lastly, you can, I would say, start reading and or watching, whatever you can find about the topic that interests you. So you might just, read newspapers, scan the newspaper, start reading, encyclopedic definitions. Even going to the Wikipedia page is fine for that topic as an initial sort of pre-writing stage. You can take notes at that point, but I don't want you to, use that as your main research source. But you can build off of that material. Watch documentaries, watch YouTube clips. Don't use those as your sources, but they can start, generating ideas that you're gonna maybe explore more when you start actually doing the research and writing your paper. So when you're finally sort of happy with, your maybe initial stage of understanding the issue, you want to maybe delve more deeply into the research part of your process of writing. So this is actually finding the data, the information that you're going to use in your essay. So these are quality sources that are reliable, accurate information. And you can sort of trust these sources to have that, accurate, reliable information for your essay. So things like electronic journal articles, which we've talked a little bit about already in assignment number 1, but using your library, your university library is probably your best source for research. And, you can find a lot of those sources are available online. So, you might not even have to go to the library to access them, which is very convenient for those of us who are stuck at home. And you could use, Google Scholar online. So there's lots of sort of electronic databases that you can, explore and find information from. Finding newspapers online, news sources are often a good, resource that you can use. Just be aware that, some of the articles that you'll find are opinion pieces, not necessarily, it's still a relevant, reliable source, but it's subjective. So you just want to be sure that there's you're always acknowledging that there might be bias or subjective opinion in the source. Looking at websites is fine. You might want to just check where it's from. So if it has an org or gov sort of in its URL website, then it's either a nonprofit organization or a government website. If it has .com, it's a commercial website. So you just want to be aware that the information that comes from a government website is more reliable or accurate than some that come from just a com URL, because they might be trying to sell you something, or it might be more blog-ish, more personal or subjective. And if you don't know that person's credentials, if you don't know what their background is, again, you might be getting biased information. So just be a little bit aware of the quality of the websites that you're using. And if you're not sure, you can check with me, send me a link to the website. And if you're not sure, say, is this an okay website to use? And I can give you my opinion on that. You can, again, always go with books that have been published. Some are available online, so Google Books. You can download books pretty cheaply from there. or see excerpts. You can use the library again. You can go to the library and take out a book. You can use people or experts in that as sources as well. So in some cases, there are nonprofits in and around Saskatchewan that you could, phone and ask their expert opinion on that topic. So if you were interested in talking to a doctor or somebody who works at a nonprofit, like if you were interested in looking at the opioid epidemic in Saskatchewan, you could call the harm reduction site in Saskatoon or something like that and ask questions, and they would, within their capacity of knowledge that they have working in that field, they could give you an answer and you could use that information in your paper. But again, you don't want to just use random people or friends and family in your paper. You want to make sure that those people are experts or that's their profession and they're giving you a professional response in that capacity. So that would be a research source. And if you're not sure if the person is relevant or accurate as a source, you could again ask me and I'll give you my opinion on that. The other one is just films and documentaries. Again, there's lots of valuable information that's out in documentary film. So if you're somebody who's, again, maybe more visual, or you learn better through videos, again, take a look at documentaries. There's a lot of audio visual sources that are available through the university library for free. So you can go through the library and check out a lot of those sources online. And it's, again, a free source if you're a university student, so make sure that you're aware of what's out there. So yeah, any of these are avenues for you to find information to include into your paper. So the sources that you find for your research, there's different types of what we call evidence. So evidence is the actual information that you would include in your paper. So it could be quotations, it could be paraphrased information from journals, it could be summarized information from various sources. So there's different types of evidence. You can include personal experience as one type of evidence. And actually in my paper, I'm asking you to write a brief discussion section. And in that section, you can reflect on your personal experience with that issue or your initial views on that topic. So you could build off of personal experience. That's one type of evidence. The next one is published studies or experiments. So that's sort of our academic sources, scholarly sources. These are published studies or experiments done by researchers. And, if you continue to go on in school, you might become a researcher. So these are people who are experts in their field and often doing the experiments and gathering data and publishing their studies in journals and books. So that's the information that we want you to start looking at. There's different kinds of data as well. So qualitative data is the non-numerical, so no numbers involved. It is maybe more like interviews, quotations from case studies or people that are interviewed, or testimonies from those people who experienced that thing, observations, that kind of thing. So qualitative data is one form of evidence. Versus quantitative data. So this is the numerical information that you're going to gather. It could be in the form of statistics or percentages or charts. Or when you say, 1 in 4, blah, 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 blah. So those are the kind of, numerical quantitative data that you can count or quantify to include in your paper. Other sources are, expert peer-reviewed. These could be academic or government sources. And these are, again, your most reliable source of information is from scholarly or academic sources and government websites. Poor sources are blogs, because a blog is just, we don't know who the person's, what their credentials are. So it could just be, so-and-so's opinion on this topic with no facts or data to back up their information or their opinion. So then you don't get really reliable information. It's just somebody's opinion or feelings even on the topic. So again, you want to make sure that you're not just relying on blogs. Wikipedia is an interesting one because it's great as an initial entry into a topic. And if I go to Wikipedia, I'll read the page, and it'll give you a good sort of background information on an issue. But you want to do more. You want to sort of explore maybe the links on the Wikipedia page more than relying on just the Wikipedia page as your main source. So it's good starting off place, but don't use it as your primary source in your essays, because it's not written by one person. There's anybody can sort of add to Wikipedia and build on the pages. So it's not really peer reviewed or fact checked. So it's often just people, logging in and updating the information. And you don't really know if it's reliable. So you just want to make sure that you're finding relevant sources. But Wikipedia, good starting place. Don't use it in your papers. Same with forums or comment sections on a website. Often, those are just subjective again. People's opinions or feelings on the topic. We have no idea what their credentials are, what their profession is or what their background is. So unless you can sort of double check somebody's credentials, and often you can, if you find a blog that's interesting, look at the person's homepage and the about section. So who is this person? Do they have a background in, education or medical, whatever? So you want to make sure that their credentials are somebody who could speak with authority on this issue. And if they're just, Joe Schmo from wherever, you want to maybe not use that source in your paper. So just be aware that, you want to check the credentials or profession, because, accuracy and reliable information is important in a research paper. And then finally, when you've done your research, you've found some sources, you can start thinking about organization of your essay. So the actual findings of your research findings should be organized in some, logical sequence. So think about the sections or chunks of your essay, the information that you've gathered and how you're going to organize that. You can start identifying sort of the main sections of your paper and any sort of subsections or subpoints. So for example, here, if my main sections of my paper, I might, if I'm writing about student stress, I'll identify the problem. And that might be one section of my essay, or one paragraph might be just explaining what this problem is, that students experience stress. And in this section, when I talk about this problem of student stress, I might further have different points that I want to bring up. So the reasons why students are so stressed out right now. So for example, maybe they're overburdened with work and school. Maybe their problems are exacerbated by isolation due to the COVID epidemic, etc. So you might want to, just start thinking of sections, larger sections, smaller sections within that when you start planning your paper. So you might decide, you want to talk about the problem and the solutions in your essay, or you might talk about causes and effects, or pros and cons, or, just the sides of an issue, why something exists and what can be done about it. So sort of start thinking about those initial sections or chunks of your essay topic. And that's going to help, when you start outlining your paper. A lot of you will probably be used to a kind of 3-paragraph structure of your essay. And that's fine, but this paper is a little bit different. But you can think about, maybe what are the 3 points or findings that you're going to include in your essay. You might have problem solutions. And then I'm going to ask you to also do a discussion section. So you could think of that as 3 sections. Or you might have, causes, effects, and then the discussion section. So yeah, just something, I'll post an outline just to clarify what I mean, but it's a good idea to start organizing your research findings in sort of clustering them under major sections or chunks of your paper.